Okay, good morning. It is 9 a.m. on July 2nd, 2025, and this is the Town of Rocky Mountain House regular council meeting. I will call the meeting to order at 9 o'clock. The Town of Rocky Mountain House wishes to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many Indigenous peoples, including the Blackfoot, Cree, Saulteaux, Stoney, and Métis. So we're going to move on to adoption of the agenda. We have an agenda in front of us for today's meeting. Is there any changes or modifications to the agenda? If not, just looking for a motion. Councillor Schepel.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I also move the agenda as presented.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we will move on to the public hearing portion. I hereby declare that the public hearing for bylaw 2025/11 is now open. This public hearing is being convened pursuant to the Municipal Government Act in order to consider the proposed bylaw 2025/11, a bylaw to amend the Town of Rocky Mountain House Municipal Development Plan, bylaw 2020/20, and the Town of Rocky Mountain House Land Use bylaw 2020/19. At this hearing, the public will be allowed to make presentations to council, and all persons present who believe that their interest in a property is affected by the proposed bylaw will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to be present written submissions respecting matters containing in the proposed bylaw. Those who wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaw may address the council by clearly stating your name and address. Then you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposed bylaw. Comments and contents of all emails or letters received become part of the public record, as well as this public hearing, which is being live streamed. Should council require clarification on any issue raised by the public, council will call on the staff to further clarify the matter. The staff's comments will be limited to technical matters and should be not construed as support or in opposition for the development. Members of council may, if they wish, ask questions of you following your presentation. However, the main function of council members today is to listen to the views of the public. Excuse me. It is not the function of council at this meeting, at this public hearing, to debate the merits of the proposed bylaw with individual citizens. Everyone shall be given the reasonable opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views heard. Any person who wishes to present a written submission to council may do so. All of those submissions will be retained by the secretary, and copies of the submissions will be available upon request after the hearing. So first I'm going to ask for administration to introduce the bylaw. And Mr. Schwader is going to do that, and Mr. Fitzsimmons.
Acting Mayor Phillips. Bylaw 2025/11 is a bylaw to amend both the land use bylaw and the municipal development plan to rezone the subject parcel from medium density residential to core commercial, and then also to amend the MDP and redesignate the land from downtown transition mixed use to commercial. The applicant's applying to construct a future parking facility. Under current zoning, parking facility is not a listed use, and under core commercial, it's a discretionary use. And that's what the application and the bylaw is for. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to ask the administration, have we had any correspondence or written submissions that have been received?
Acting Mayor Phillips, we did send out, once first reading was given, we did send out letters to agencies and adjacent landowners. At the time of the report, when it was written last Wednesday, we did receive 5 comments, or we received 4 comments, and then we received one from Clearwater County's Planning and Development Department. They indicated that there was no concerns, or they had no concerns. Alberta Environment, Sustainable Resources, their Forestry and Parks Department, they indicated they had no concerns. Alberta Health Services indicated they had no concerns. And then ATCO Gas, they made comments that there's a gas line in in that area. And usually with those, they do get addressed under a development permit. After the report was submitted, we did receive an additional comment from Clearwater Regional Fire, and they also indicated they had no concerns with the application. Since writing the report, we did receive a email comment from the Columbus Place, or representative from Columbus Place. They just had some questions in regard to the future parking facility if it went through, and we will follow up with the applicants. There's more some questions that kind of fall under the development permit side of things. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now I am going to ask if there's anyone here to speak on behalf of the bylaw from the public. And it looks like we do have a few members. So first of all, I'm going to ask, is there anyone in favor, or wanted to speak in favor of the bylaw? No? Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to speak against the bylaw? Okay, so there is no one from the public that is wanting to speak for or against this bylaw. So I am going to ask council if they have any technical questions for administration right now. I am not seeing any questions. Okay, so now we can ask for a motion to close the public hearing portion of this for bylaw 2025/11. Councillor Auld.
I'll make the motion that we close the public hearing.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion on that motion. Call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, so we are going to move on to adoption of the previous minutes. So we have our minutes from the June 17th meeting. Is there any errors or omissions or any changes that need to be made to those minutes? Not, just looking for a motion to accept those minutes. Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. I move that we accept the regular council meeting minutes of June the 17th, 2025.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. And we are going to move on to item 8.1, the amending bylaw 2025/11. I see Mr. Fitzsimmons and Mr. Schwader coming up again.
My apologies, Acting Mayor Phillips. So we're presenting bylaw 2025/11. It's a bylaw to amend the land use bylaw to rezone the subject parcel from medium density residential to core commercial. The applicants would like to construct a future parking facility at the location, kind of for an overflow for their staff. They own the building as the Mountain View Dental, Rocky Eye Care. They're just looking for overflow parking for their employees and staff. We did a review of the bylaw, and so currently under medium density residential, parking facility isn't allowed. If rezoned to core commercial, parking facilities would be listed as a discretionary use. And then the amendment would also redesignate the parcel under the municipal development plan from downtown transition mixed use to commercial. Currently, the downtown transition mixed use is kind of a designation that's meant for kind of a mix of residential, but some commercial to complement residential, kind of like a small, like a corner store or something like that. So commercial would fit the proposed parking facility. We did reach out to agencies and adjacent landowners, and we did receive the comments from the agencies that they all indicated they had no concerns. ATCO Gas just mentioned there's a gas line in the vicinity, and then those are addressed under development permits when the applicant submits them. Other than that, and then we did receive one comment from a representative for Columbus Place. They just had some questions about kind of the future parking facility, and those questions will be addressed with the representatives. and it's also addressed under a development permit. If the amendment does go through, it is a discretionary use, so the Development Authority does have, we discussed the application, like a development permit would be needed, and we would review it with the applicants, and we can require conditions such as landscaping, screening, a grading plan, just to make sure future rain on that parking lot doesn't impact the neighbors, and traffic going in and out doesn't impact the adjacent landowners and pedestrians and vehicles in the area. So based on that, we're recommending that council give a second and third reading to bylaw 2025/11. If council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fitzsimmons. Councillor Shippold has a question.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I have two questions for Mr. Fitzsimmons. Number one is, what were the comments from Columbus Place directly? If I can get those. And secondly, there's no timeline on asphalt. You in your report indicate down the road there'll be asphalt on there, but there's no timeline, whether it's in 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years. I'm thinking that if we don't put a timeline on a document, it's never going to happen. So I think it needs to have a timeline on it. So dust will be an issue down the road. So how are you going to address a timeline, or why would there not be a timeline on it?
Through Acting Mayor Phillips to Councillor Shippold, the questions that were asked about the future parking lots, if it could be used for an overflow for Columbus Place, will the street parking still, will the parking on the street still be available for parking? And is there a plan to help with the main street area congestion? For example, almost every day there's one or more vehicles that turn into a back alley bordering this property, so they can back out, so that they can back out in order to get a turnaround and go back to the main street. That would be something for the tenants to discuss with the owner. Oh, I didn't mention it. I didn't mention in the report. We did reach out to the owners of the parcel in regards to special event parking, and they did indicate that the parking could be used for special events like Market on Main. They just indicated that parking will only be available after business hours, and it'd be at users' own risk if something happens to their vehicle while it's parked there. It's kind of their responsibility if they're parking in that area. As for the questions on the timelines, yes, there will be a timeline on the development permits. I believe it was there'd be a condition on the permit that the applicants pave the parking lot, giving them to a year to 2 years, and then there also would be we get an application from the applicants just to see what their dimensions are going to be for the parking lots, and then we review that application with engineering and operations, get their comments, see if they've got any concerns, and then we can also have requirements for landscaping and screening in that area, just so there isn't, just to mitigate any noise or impact there. But yes, there would be a timeline on paving it. On their land use bylaw, that parking facility would need to be paved, and we were looking at one or 2 years as a condition on the development permit.
Councillor Shippold, your light's still on. Do you have more questions?
Yeah, I just want to be clear on the timeline, 1 or 2 years. What's the bylaw require, and how cut and dried are we? Like, is it 1 year or 2 years?
Through Acting Mayor Phillips, Acting Mayor Phillips to Councillor Shippold, there isn't a timeline requirement under our land use bylaw, but we do have a requirement that does need to be paved. So we'd work with the applicant just to set that timeline.
Councillor Shippold, as far as the demolition's being done, so we have to make sure the ground settles. So it'll probably be 1 full year for that. And then we'll put a requirement in for 2 years to have it done paved. And it'll be gravelled. As far as dust control, it would be a gravel parking lot. For the 2 years, yeah, until, okay.
Okay, do we have any further questions? Comments, concerns? Councillor Capraro.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make a motion Be it resolved that council gives second reading to amending bylaw 2025/11, a bylaw to amend the Town of Rocky Mountain House Municipal Development Plan, bylaw 2020/20, and the Town of Rocky Mountain House Land Use Bylaw, bylaw 2019/19 as presented.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Do we have discussion on that motion? Councillor Shippold.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Again, the timeline on the asphalt, should that be part of this motion? I just want to make sure we capture it someplace and don't lose it, so.
Councillor Alt.
Just for admin, would that not be part of the development permit? Like that's when, yeah, that's when the 1 year. Okay.
And Councillor Cabrera, do you have further question or further comments? No. Okay, do we have any other comments or questions on this motion? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to call it to a vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And Councillor Ald.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll make the second motion. Be it resolved that council give third reading to amending bylaw 2025/11, a bylaw to amend the Town of Rocky Mountain House Municipal Development Plan, bylaw 2020/20, and the Town of Rocky Mountain House Land Use Bylaw, bylaw 2020/19 as presented.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that particular motion? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8.2, Land Use Amending Bylaw 2025/06. And Mrs. Hartling is coming up.
Good morning, Your Worship and Council. We're just revisiting the Land Use Bylaw Amendment 2025-06, bylaw to amend the Land Use Bylaw. We've looked at this previously, and if Council would like to give me some direction as to whether you want to go through every item or if you just want to touch on the items from the last meeting to proceed in that regard.
I think we can probably just touch on the items from the last meeting.
Okay.
Is that okay with council? Yeah.
So a couple of the items that I noted that we wanted to revisit were under section 3.7. There were no changes made in this section. However, Councillor Shippold did have some questions regarding the zero lot lines. The regulations under the land use bylaw in this section refer to when a subdivision authority can reduce a side yard requirement where the adjacent owner grants a 1.5 meter maintenance access easement and an encroachment agreement in perpetuity. This would allow for maintenance of the side of the building and would acknowledge any potential encroachment onto an adjacent land such as an eave. Regarding building code, if a building is installed on a property that has a zero lot line, there are different requirements. A commercial building would require a firewall. A firewall would need to be engineered and may be constructed of concrete, rock wall, or steel as examples. A residential building would require a party wall, a 1 hour fire separation that would need to meet prescriptive requirements. I did include a document that the City of Calgary has. It's their zero lot line variance document, and it provides examples of what would be required in terms of building code when there is a zero lot line. I mean, these are maybe questions that if council has additional questions under this area, that, you know, that's certainly an option would be to have a building inspector come in and answer some of those questions. However, I just wanted to point out that this section is not in terms of referencing the building code. It's more in terms of when there is a zero lot line, you know, what the subdivision authority would want to see so that there can be maintenance on that building. Because typically there's a side yard setback And so that allows a person to access that portion of the side yard to be able to do maintenance on the side of the building. But when there is a zero setback, then maintenance on that side of the building is restricted. And so that's where the access easement would come into place, and that would be registered on the title of the adjacent parcel. So I don't know if that answers council's questions. Okay. The next section I wanted to move over to was section 3.12, and that was regarding landscaping. So based on the feedback from the previous meeting, I did put into the land use bylaw what was put into place was more an objective-based approach. So what we did is identified what would the objectives be for landscaping, and leaving it in the developer's hands to provide information under a development permit that would meet those objectives. So it does give the developer more control, and we would review it to ensure that the objectives are met. Pardon me. Landscaping requirements in a land use bylaw are typically mandated to ensure aesthetic quality, environmental stewardship, and compatibility of development with its surroundings. These regulations are typically applied to new developments as well as significant expansions to an existing site. Securities were removed from the bylaw, as assurance for compliance can be done through enforcement under the land use bylaw. And when we did rewrite, we did add a couple of sections under enforcement that gives us a bit more authority to enforce. One of the other changes that we made in that section was we made it clear that under the bylaw that there could be enforcement for maintenance of the landscaping that's required under a development permit. And so there's assurance there that when landscaping is put into place, that is maintained over time. Does council have any questions in regards to the objectives that we identified under there? I can bring it up. So just to be clear, some of the objectives are screening or transitional landscaping to provide barriers to shield adjacent properties and public roads from noise, light, and views, and to protect municipal infrastructure such as curbing. Environmental stewardship to reduce storm water runoff, improve air quality, utilizing native plants and other xeriscaping, and enhancing biodiversity and healthy ecosystems. Safety and maintainability, designed to ensure clear sight lines, proper drainage, utilizing durability and low-maintenance plants that are native to the area or other xeriscaping initiatives, and compatibility with neighborhood and natural environment, incorporating natural features and respecting the existing topography and area grading requirements. Natural features can include native plants, drought-resistant ground cover, or other types of xeriscaping perennials, rocks, and stones. And then, the depth of topsoil, that was in there previously, and that's also under design guidelines, and that's just when a new development occurs, is to ensure that there's enough topsoil that, stuff is not going to die. Boulevard to be landscaped unless hard surface for a municipal purpose such as sidewalks, and completion of the landscaping within 1 year of completion of construction or commencement of the use, whichever occurs first, and the property owner shall maintain all landscaping in accordance to the approved permit and town bylaws.
Okay, do we have any questions? I know this is something we had talked quite in depth on the last time we talked. Is there any questions, Councillor Brisker?
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. No, no questions. I just want to say that I really like these changes. I think it captures the intention of landscaping requirements without micromanaging it. My hope is that going forward, that developers will work within the spirit of the bylaw in the landscaping section, because, you know, I'm not fond of bylaws or policies that are open to interpretation generally, but I think there needs to be some flexibility, and I think that's been captured here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Schiffel, did you have your light on? Yeah.
I did have my light on. Thank you, Acting Mayor. I just would like to mirror those same comments. I think this is far better now than what it was. This is a great improvement, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to be clear as well, that if a developer did have questions, that they can always reach out to the Development Authority for some, clarification. And we do, we still have to do a review of any landscaping plans that are submitted. And our goal is not to create burdens upon a developer, but it is to ensure that there is some landscaping that, the aesthetic value of our community is maintained. So. Okay, if I'm okay, I'll just
Yep,
move on
yep,
to the
go right
next
ahead.
section.
Yeah, can move on.
Okay. The next section that I wanted to address was on stormwater management. So under the town's design guidelines, we did talk about that 7.413 acres as a requirement for a stormwater management facility. Those were engineered guidelines, really to have a conversation about like minimizing that requirement or changing that requirement probably would require an engineer review. And so I just wanted to make council aware of that if that's something that council would like to see in future, that, possibly a separate, meeting could be held to kind of review those requirements, because we follow the direction of the design guidelines in the management of our land use bylaw. Like, we kind of work together when we're looking at development requirements, so.
Okay.
Are there any questions on that?
Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I agree with you. I think we should take this up with an engineer down the road. Stormwater off of that big of a piece of property, if it's all asphalted, is significant if in a storm. So I think that it's overkill. I think that's too big of a parcel. I think we have to have stormwater management so that we're not having water go onto other people's properties. So I think that if we put this in the things to do down the road when we talk to an engineer about getting a opinion, that would make sense. So.
Yeah, and just to clarify as well, when there's a subdivision that occurs, usually under a development agreement, that parcel creates separate subdivision parcels. Each of those parcels are subject to a grading plan for that overall area. So the intent is that each individual parcel is kind of like a piece of a larger grading plan. And though it's when those larger parcels are subdivided, that's where the 7.413 acre parcel, that's where that requirement comes in. Just so you're aware. But for sure, like, if that's something council wants to revisit, that's something that can be done.
Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. So to that then, if you were to build a plaza on 7 acres of land, or a car dealership on 7 acres of land, or a grocery store on 7 acres of land, there's really no requirement what happens to the stormwater off that piece of land at this point. Is that correct?
If it was this size, then we would require a stormwater management facility on that parcel of land.
Let me back it up. If it was a 6 acre or 5 acre
Okay.
parcel of land, okay? Car dealerships are typically 4.5 acres. What happens to the stormwater off of that? In this case, we would have no stormwater management plan for a 4.5 acre or 5 acre parcel of land, for a plaza, grocery store, plaza, anything in that area.
To Councillor Schiff through Acting Mayor. Just in regards to that, we would work with, all of our development permitting and subdivision goes through our engineering department. Our engineering department would review the proposed subdivision or development and would provide feedback to us on that. Now, they also use the design guidelines to, make their decisions. So, that really comes down to what engineering would do in terms of feedback on a permit. So I can't speak to that, but I can say that the design guidelines reference the 7.413. So whether engineering is, to me, this is a document that engineering would refer to, and so I would expect that that would be what they would use.
And did you have a further question, Councillor Shepard?
Yeah, I'm still not clear. So I guess if a developer comes here and is doing a 5-acre parcel development, there's nothing compelling that developer to do anything with stormwater management. Is
It
that-
would go to, we would send that to engineering, and engineering would provide their comment. Now, in terms of how engineering, what kind of discretion engineering has on this, I'm not 100% clear on what their discretion is.
The bylaw specifically, if we go by our bylaw,
Right.
I'm a developer, I come in, I want to develop something, our bylaw says if it's over 7 acres, I got to deal with it. Under 7 acres, I don't have to deal with my stormwater on my lot.
Again, I'm referring to engineering. And so I haven't read through the whole design guideline to see if there's a section in there that provides some opportunity for discretion as to the size of a parcel and when stormwater management comes in. So to me, that's an engineering question that I unfortunately can't answer for you.
I think it's based on every different scenario. So ideally, it depends how much is being released off that lot. If it gets to the point where, too much water is being released, a stormwater pond may be required even under a 7-acre parcel. But it all depends how much is being released off that. If it can be managed as far as free flow onto the curb and gutter where our system can handle it, great. But that's up to an engineer to determine in regards to when they provide a drainage plan from that developer.
Mr. Crouch?
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So just to bring it back a bit, so in reality, every lot that's developed in town requires a stormwater management, not necessarily a plan, but they need to address it. And that goes right down to a residential lot. So when they apply for a permit for a residential lot, it's a site grading plan showing where that water runoff is going to, either onto the street, into the stormwater, or whatever. So it's the same for any lot, regardless of size. They need, when they apply for a permit, they need to address how stormwater is going to be taken care of. And that's in our design guidelines, or engineering design guidelines. So a car dealership with a 4.5-acre lot, a lot of it's going to be hard surfaced and all that. So really what the engineer who's submitting the application is going to do is going to address how they're going to take care of that stormwater. If it's going to be surface drainage out onto our streets, because our streets also serve as a stormwater management aspect. If we actually have underground stormwater there, are they going to design their parking lot so it goes into a manhole and then out into our stormwater system? Or, if none of those options are available, how are you going to retain that water on site? Maybe a small pond, and which then can discharge to a ditch or whatever is there. So the answer to the question is yes, stormwater is taken care of at every development permit stage in accordance to our design guidelines. But how it's done is going to depend where the lot is and what municipal services are available to that lot. Does that answer your question? So there's no specific answer. It depends what municipal utilities are in that area, but it is a requirement of every development permit of managing stormwater, right down to a residential lot.
So we have our design guideline, and then we have our land use bylaw. and they don't meld.
They should meld.
Well, we got 7 acres. If you have 7-acre parcel, you don't need a stormwater plan. But you're saying in design guideline, it says we do need a
I think
stormwater plan.
I think we're getting a little caught up on the word plan. So what the land use bylaw is a stormwater management plan, which is a little bit more detailed than just having a lot grading plan of how you're going to take care of the stormwater. So if it's over 7 acres, I mean, we can review the land use bylaw with the design guidelines to make sure they do mesh. But there's a difference between a stormwater management plan versus a lot grading plan that handles the stormwater. But we will verify, make sure we're doing the same.
As I said at a previous council meeting, us as a community have been in doo-doo about where stormwater's been going in the past, and I just want to make sure we don't get into doo-doo again.
Yeah.
So is this something that we can verify that they mesh? Yes, go ahead.
Your worship. So I think what would need to happen is that we would have to have a meeting with our engineering group, as well as bring in the group that did the design guidelines and review the current practices and the requirements under that document. We would have to reference, so under our land use bylaw, we do have sections that address that, water can't go onto an adjacent site. And we also, for an individual lot, for example, for a single-family dwelling, we do require a grading plan, both a rough grade plan and a final grade plan. And then those documents are sent to engineering, and they reference, like, for example, for Laybon or whatnot, there's like an overall grading, a stormwater management plan that's submitted under the subdivision. And then when an individual lot is constructed, or when development goes on an individual lot, we cross-reference their grading plan to that overall bigger plan, the stormwater management plan, to ensure that everything aligns and that it's not going to go contrary to what the plans were for that area. So an individual lot within that bigger plan has to have grading that complies with what the overall grading stormwater management plan is for that area. A stormwater management facility is, where they construct a pond. So it's a pond that collects some of that stormwater. And those are typically, I think, constructed to meet like the 100-year rain, right? Like one of those big rainfalls that you get once every 100 years. And so the intent is that those stormwater management facilities, the ponds, they're constructed to with the idea that they would collect that rainwater for those, those 100-year rains. So.
Okay, so are we able to move forward with this particular item in this bylaw? Or how can we handle this, Mr. Kraus?
Well, I think what it sounds like is that, maybe a meeting with our engineering department and review some of the requirements that are under the town's design guidelines, and is kind of what I'm hearing. Mr. Kraus, if there's something different you're hearing.
Okay. Is that something that council's okay with? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So if we're okay to move on to the next section, then it would be section 3.35, and that the changes that were made to the CCANs. I'm just going to move forward on my document here. So I guess first off, I just wanted to reference that I did change the definition for CCANs to portable storage units. And what I did add is the definition is as follows: physical storage container. So a portable storage unit means a physical storage container which may or may not have wheels and which is typically made of steel and is weather resistant but may be made of other materials. This can include, but is not limited to, a sea can, a moving bin, a cube or pod, or a transport trailer or container. A portable storage unit are deemed to be an accessory building or structure. So I felt like it was more encompassing of some of the different portable storage units that come into place. Under the regulations, we did change it, so use for an accessory use for storage. It still has to comply with all of the regulations for accessory buildings and uses. In residential districts, portable storage unit means does require a development permit and shall only be allowed temporarily for the purpose of construction or moving. We did put some timelines in there that I wanted to run by council. So for construction, we've put a maximum of 6 months and must be removed within 7 days upon construction completion. And then for moving purposes, the portable storage unit is allowed for 7 days and must be removed immediately after the move is complete. The 6-month timeline we felt was sufficient. That typically would handle something like a basement renovation or something like that. We do require development permits because oftentimes the portable storage unit is not necessarily on the property itself and is sometimes put in the road right of way, particularly for moving. For construction, we would want to see it on the subject parcel, like in the rear yard or on their driveway. But for moving, we do sometimes get people requesting that they be put on the road right of way, and then we run it through our engineering department to ensure that safety is paramount and that any requirements to ensure public safety is in place for that.
Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you. So is there something in place that would, if it goes past a 6-month timeframe, how would that be addressed?
Under our development permit, we can allow for one extension, and that's both under, our regular development permitting is valid for 1 year from the date of issuance, which would be not the day we approve it, but the 3-week period following. That's the appeal period that's required under the Municipal Government Act. So there's a 1-year allowance under the development permit, but our land use bylaw also allows for an extension up to 1 year if construction has not started. So in the case of a CCAN, if we allowed 6 months and for construction and they needed a 3-month extension, we could, through our land use bylaw, provide for an extension at the discretion of the development authority up to, 1 year. But, I would hope that we wouldn't have it for that long on the site. Okay. So in all other districts, so previously there was a requirement that there was a timeline that they were allowed, which didn't make sense, particularly for the industrial districts. And, one of the things was that they would have to, we could approve it for 3 years. They'd have to remove it for a month and then bring it back on and apply again, which we made those changes because typically for a lot of the properties, when they put a CCAN on, if it's a temporary, it's noted under the application that it's a temporary structure, and we could allow for, again, it's the 1-year timeline plus a 1-year extension if needed, if it's for a temporary application. If it's more for a permanent structure, Then we've written in regulations that would apply regarding screening, particularly on like a highway commercial lot for screening. And then building permits are required under the building code, and that is often at the discretion of the safety codes officer. I think an 8x20 for temporary use, they may not require a building permit if it was just storage of non-combustible materials. But if there was combustible materials, the safety codes officer might ask for a building permit. We work on all of our development permits. We do work with our safety codes officer in terms of confirming whether a building permit is required. And that's for structures such as secants, or it would also be applicable for change in tenancy or new construction.
Councillor Schipple has a question.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a question about the screening, and I'm glad you have the words "may be required" in there, because I think screening with a secant on wheels or a trailer is going to be almost impossible. But my concern is more so with the storage underneath those units that have wheels. There's all kinds of stuff on the ones that are around town underneath there that isn't so eye appealing. Will that get addressed in this, where if they do have trailers on wheels, where if there's storage underneath those units, that it does get screened?
So,
Or what's your, how does that get addressed?
so when a new development occurs, we would address it through the development permit process. For other items that are, say, existing, it would be on a complaint basis. So typically, whenever we receive a complaint regarding something that maybe is not aesthetically appealing, we have a couple of options. One would be through our land use bylaw, when regulations are in place for screening. The other one would be if a site was unkept, then we do have our community standards bylaw as well that can address items that are messy or unkept. Okay. We don't have the staff to, like, none of our staff drives around looking for non-conformance under the bylaw, so usually our response is complaint-based.
I was just going to comment, moving forward, as far as if someone comes in and does a DP for a tractor trailer, we can put on the DP that there's no storage underneath the tractor trailer as far as the DP, as far as a requirement moving forward.
And then I just wanted to just highlight the other area there with, they're optional discussion items, I guess, and that's in terms of whether council wants to put a maximum size for portable storage units on a site. So I did put in a highway commercial district, the total amount of portable storage units on a site shall not exceed 10% of the footprint of the principal building. And then notwithstanding that section, in the highway commercial district, the development authority may allow for one portable storage unit above the 10% of the footprint of the principal building, provided that the additional portable storage unit is not more than an 8.5 by 40-foot container, and that the footprint of the principal building is under 3,400 square feet. So that would allow, say, a building the principal building is 1,000 square foot, and they wanted to put one CCAN on the property. That would allow them to do so. It would allow for managing in the highway commercial district, like giving, like managing it to a 10%. But that's at council's discretion, because if you're going to impose a restriction on portable storage units, like we still look at site coverage. You know, we look at the principal building, we look at other accessory buildings that are on the site, and then we would look at any storage containers, any portable storage containers in our calculation of site coverage. So I just wanted to include that because from the last meeting, there was some conversation about putting limitations on there. But we do have our site coverage allowance that would also control the amount of accessory buildings on a site, taking into account the size of the principal, the size of the parcel, and in the size of any accessory building. So I just wanted to include that and see what council's feeling was as to whether or not you wanted to impose restrictions.
Okay, so we have that for discussion for council. Are we okay with having this put in there where there's a 10% of the footprint of the principal building? Councillor Moosker.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I am. We can talk about the percentage, but from my perspective, I don't think a portable storage unit should be a permanent response to storage. It should be temporary, and if they need a larger facility or something, that should be the goal, not stacking portable storage units around the existing building. So I like this. We can debate the percentage of the size of the structure. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Moosker. I think it's something that we need to have in here, whether it's 10% or something different than that, that's for discussion. But I agree that, you know, if we keep adding and adding and adding, at some point, we have to do something about the portable units and create a permanent solution. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thanks. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I would almost like to see it worded as at the discretion of, at the time of the development authority looking at it, and like you said, looking at the whole entire site, because, you know, we don't have necessarily the available land for some of these businesses to expand. You know, they may want to, but it's just, there's nothing available. So perhaps something with, you know, a variance like we've done, giving the development authority the discretion to look at it with the big picture, as opposed to limiting them to 10% of the footprint of just the principal building. I like 3.35.8. That does allow to have one container. Again, it just might not be economically feasible for those businesses to be putting or adding on to buildings and adding the construction. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Councillor Auld.
Thanks, Acting Mayor. I agree with Councillor Hutchinson. If somebody has a 2.5 or a 3 acre lot, they've got a 10,000 square foot building, and they need to have that extra just storage. For that business to go and build another building for $1 million versus having a little extra storage, I don't want to hinder that business to grow when they can't afford to build a new building, but they can grow with having a little bit of storage. So if we took that 10% to up to 20, and it's still, they still have to abide by the lot coverage and all the extra conditions on there, I'd like to see that possibly change up to 20, because it still is addressed by the rest of it.
And Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So maybe a suggestion for council. I think it's very tough to put a percentage on it because there's a huge variety of businesses with different requirements for storage. There's a huge variety of lot sizes. So you might want to try to do more of an objective-based and just put restrictions in it. Like, for example, the portable storage unit cannot be in the front yard exposed to the street. It cannot take away any required parking for the business. It cannot eliminate any required landscaping. So then basically it's up to the business owner to figure that out, but it would allow for the storage, but it keeps the content of the intent of the business and the property there. So because that percentage is just, I think, is very difficult, just with the variety of businesses and lots.
What do we think about that solution? Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd be so inclined that we'd adhere to that suggestion. I think it allows us the flexibility that we would need. Some of the lots unfortunately got roads on both sides, all four sides. So it would be a difficult one, but I think if we allow discretion with our development authority, that they could work around that.
Yeah, I agree. The intent of this isn't to hurt a business or not allow them to have, extra storage when it's needed. I think the intent of this is more to make it eye appealing so that we don't have CCANs overtaking businesses especially on highway commercial. So are we okay if we can change that to the suggestion that Mr. Kraus had? Okay.
To Acting Mayor through council, I will rewrite, I'll add a section in there that addresses the items that Mr. Kraus put forward. And I'm hoping that I can just bring that back though for first reading, and that we don't have to come back another time prior to first reading, if that works for everybody. Okay.
Councillor Schiffel.
I'm hoping we can back up a ways to 3.25.7, that's home occupations. We talked about the idling of vehicles for 5 minutes in yards, and we're going to check to see where that fell within our other bylaw. I can't recall which bylaw. Was that, and I was under the impression it may get removed or may not get removed, and I just want to get an update as to what was going to happen with that.
No, I think, Acting Mayor to Councillor Shippold, I think it's something that needs to be removed, so we do not have any idling requirements in our traffic bylaw. I think back in, I can't remember the year, but a non-idling bylaw was brought forward to council and it was actually defeated. So I think that's one revision we should be making here, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
Acting Mayor through to Councillor Shippold, I will remove that. Okay, and I think the next section that we have to review is I just kind of highlighted the portable storage unit, so the definitions that were added in the land use bylaw to accommodate the changes that were made. So throughout the document, under the different districts, I did update the CCANs to portable storage units. Is council okay with the different listed uses that were changed under some of the commercial and industrial districts, where we did, one of the things that, the direction that I received from council was to change some of our land use bylaw listings to make them more accessible. We did add some uses. We created a definition for contractor services with outdoor storage and contractor services without outdoor storage. Provided some clarity on that and added those to the different districts. And I know that we reviewed some of this and none of this information came up from council, so I'm going to, I'm expecting that council is okay with the changes. So under highway commercial, we did change contractor services with outdoor storage and contractor services without outdoor storage. Those are both discretionary uses, and that we added, pardon me, the condition with regards to screening in the highway commercial districts. And then I just want to go to definitions just to provide council with a bit of a review on that. So again, appeal board or tribunal, that just replaced the subdivision and development appeal board. Parcel coverage, we changed the definition to provide some clarity on what's considered site coverage or parcel coverage under our definitions. Soft-sided building definition was added for that. And changes were made throughout the land use bylaw in reference to the soft-sided buildings. Accessory building, we changed that definition, which would allow for an accessory building prior to a principal. And that is in response to some of the requests that we've received from applicants. Council seemed to be okay with that. Again, through some of our definitions, we did kind of change it so it's more, it gives some discretion to the development authority and kind of reduces red tape so we can consider different uses under the same definition, for example. Data processing centers was added as we reviewed previously. EV charging station definition was added. Monument. And the portable storage unit container. That definition was added. CCAN was removed from the definitions, and then window sign was added. Minor changes to the other schedules as well to accommodate the changes that we made throughout the land use bylaw. Does council have any further questions?
Councillor Schiffel.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'd like to go back to 9.4.3 sub 2, the brownfield development overlay. We talked about adding municipal addresses into that, as well as the legal addresses.
Okay.
And I'm just wondering if we could do that.
I will add that to the final version that comes back to council.
Okay, do we have any other comments? Any other additions, changes? So, Mr. Kraus, then we're gonna wanna take this back and then bring it back again for first reading? Okay.
Yeah, Acting Mayor, yeah, it would come back to the July 17th, the revised for first reading.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
Yeah, that we
Okay.
would, yeah.
Okay. Is everyone okay with that becoming a motion? And I'm just looking for someone to make that motion. Councillor Auld.
I'll make the motion that we bring back the amended bylaw to the July 17th regular council meeting for review and discussion.
For bylaw 2025/06.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so we have that motion on the table. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we're going to move on to new business. Item 9.1, the arena roof structure funding request. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So as council is aware, we did a structural assessment of the arenas at the rec center in conjunction with the curling rink. Council is well aware of the curling rink issues as it was before council at the last meeting. The structural report has been sent to council for reviews. So with that structural report, there was some items identified in the trusses of the arena that need repair. Initially, we were hoping that it would be a 2026 budget item, but the engineer has recommended the sooner the better. So we are bringing it forward to council to amend the budget to allow administration to proceed with those repairs to the trusses, and with the total amount of $80,431, which would come from the capital infrastructure reserve. And of course, we would also submit a letter to the county to see if they're willing to participate in a cost share on this repair.
Okay, thank you for that report, Mr. Kraus. Comments? Councillor Musker.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, to Mr. Kraus. So this is just for the Empringham Arena? It's nothing to do with the curling rink?
This is just the Empringham Arena.
Thank you.
yes.
And, you know, just looking at what's going on with the current curling rink facility, I think it's better that we get ahead of these type of repairs as opposed to waiting for them to become such an issue that facilities get shut down. Councillor Shipple.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I'll also make the motion then that it be resolved that council approve the arena roof structure funding request for $80,431 to come from the Capital Infrastructure Reserve.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion, I see Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
No, it's a second motion, sorry.
Okay, so any more discussion on that particular motion? Okay, then I'm going to call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried, and we do have a second motion. Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
I was thinking we had to add that to the realize it's two. So be it resolved that council instruct administration to send a request to Clearwater County to cost share 50% of the funding requested for the arena roof structure roof restoration design as quoted by Wood Restoration and Development.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? Call that to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we're going to move on to item 9.2, the GPC meeting, October meeting. Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor. So when council adopted the 2025 meeting schedule, the GPC in October was on that schedule for meetings. Considering that that meeting is less than a week away from the municipal election, we are just bringing it forward to council for consideration if council still wants that meeting, because it is a GPC meeting where no decisions are made. It just rise and report to the next council meeting, which in this case would be a new municipal council. Then on administrative side, the week going up to the election is a very busy administrative week. So if we did not have to have a meeting, or council did not desire to have the GPC, that would free up admin time to focus on the municipal election.
What are council's thoughts on removing that meeting? Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
I think it makes total sense. Like Mr. Kraus said, that's where we have the discussions to take to the next meeting. So I would be prepared to make the motion, be it resolved that council cancel the October 14th, 2025 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion on that motion? Call it to a vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. So we have no correspondence for action, but we do have correspondence for information. Does anyone have anything they need to look at in the correspondence for information section? Not, just looking for a motion to accept that as information. Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and make the motion to accept for information 11.1 to 11.5.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. And Councillor Mooster got his hand like right up there. That was impressive. Sorry, moving on to the action list, item 12.1, Mr. Kraus.
Yeah, thank you, Acting Mayor, to go through the open items. So storefront improvement, so council approved that, so that is done. Oh, no, it's recognizing. Sorry, recognizing the storefront. That is in progress. I know staff have discussed it, and we'll bring back a report, probably the July 17th meeting. I got the nod from our communication staff there. Rocky Curling Club request, that letter of support for the CFEP grant is complete. A request for the curling club to attend the next meeting. I would have to look at Ms. Breeze for the status of that, but it's in progress. Obviously, it wasn't today. The housing study, I still need to discuss with Mr. Emmons on where we're at with that, then plus also connect with Minister Nixon's office as they suggest there might be funding there. The tax forfeiture property is still at Land Titles.
Okay, and that is our action list. Do we have any questions of Mr. Kraus and the action list? Just looking for a motion. Counselor Ald?
Make a motion that we accept the action list for July 2nd, 2025 as information.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. Item 13, administrative inquiries. Do we have any administrative inquiries today? Counselor Shippold.
Just an inquiry for sure. How long is it anticipated that the corner of 60th and 11A will be tied up? What's the length there? I've had some questions about the status of that program.
Acting Mayor, I'll have to get back to council on that. First day back, I'll have to check in with Mr. LaFrance of the status. I mean, it was, last time I heard before I left, it was, another 3 weeks, so hopefully within 2 weeks, but I'll verify that with Mr. LaFrance and get back to council.
Okay, any other administrative inquiries? Okay, if not, we're going to move on to notice of motion. Do we have any notice of motions today? Seeing none, we will take a quick 5-minute recess, and then we can go into closed session. Okay, we are back to our live stream meeting, and we were just looking for a motion to go into closed session. Counselor Shipple?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Also make a motion, we move into closed session.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Discussion, all those in favor? That is carried. I dropped my pen. We are now in closed session. Okay, welcome back to live session. We have a few motions coming out of closed session. Item 15.2, Councillor Ald.
I'd like to make the motion that we appoint Elise Moran to the position on the library board effective date July 2nd to December 31st, 2026.
Thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. And item 15.3, Councillor Caprero.
Thank you. I'll make a motion that the town respond to the Wild Rose School Division as discussed.
Okay, thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. And item 15.4, Deputy Mayor Hutchinson.
Thank you. I would like to make the motion, be it resolved that admin brings back the off-site levy bylaw 17/04 to the July 17th, 2025 meeting.
Okay, thank you for that motion. Any discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried. And item 15.5, Councillor Musker.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. I move that we accept CAO dialogue for information.
Okay, and thank you for that motion. Discussion? All those in favor? And that is carried, and I will adjourn the meeting at 11:00.